Alright, I've got a suggestion that our problems that we face in the world today are simply because we forgot the lessons we learned by third grade. Okay? Because, after third grade, stuff started getting pretty boring. A lot of repetitious bullshit that we're just regurgitating from the books or what the teacher tells us. Carrying around all those heavy books, but then having to go to the internet for everything that we do. I'm like, God, who's making money off of this thing? But like okay, simple rules like don't hit, don't steal, right? If we lived by those rules, we wouldn't have people hitting and stealing. Even if you have a badge and a title and a costume that somebody gives you, you're still not going to be doing that because we followed just those basic rules. The other thing, the main thing that I was going to go into this talk about was about our landscape. Our landscape, like where I live, it's desert. I'm sitting in basically an oasis right now because I put mulch on the ground and these trees popped up, and I would sure as hell rather be sitting in the shade underneath these trees than out on the deserted landscape like most everything else is. So I've been hauling hundreds of tons of mulch to this property here, and making it to where it will be growing trees like this, because I didn't even plant these trees. I didn't know that these trees were going to pop up, and some people were like, "Oh, that's an elm. You got to get rid of that crap because they attract these beetles." And they said that tree right there, that tree is called the tree of heaven, but we think it's the tree of hell because it tries to take over. And I'm like, but I'm enjoying the shade available from those trees, and so really I don't care if the tree's trying to take over. Right now, there's nothing on this landscape except for some bunch grasses and sagebrush, and basically those are like the warrior plants. Those are the ones saying, no problem, dude. Oh, 8 inches of water annually that is only there available for a minute because it rushes right by. I can do that, man. I will take on that mission. And so then they they are like the last warriors before these landscapes turn into desert. And if they turn into desert, it's really hard to grow food in the desert. But when they're not a desert, food can be growing everywhere that happens where you get a little bit of shade, a little bit of protection from the sun. You get a little bit of protection as far as water, because like this tree, it drops leaves on the ground, and I don't rake them up and throw them away. I just leave them there. And actually, I even bring other leaves to this spot, and ground up wood and rocks. And you can see I've got like all these rocks and stuff that I've stacked up around here. And all those work as condensation generators. Like the rocks, okay, so when rocks are out of the earth, when you've taken them out of the dirt, they become a chunk of really dense mass. That's why they're heavy, right? And they're hard. And you can build houses with them, but people like to build houses out of sticks that burn down. So, but the Flintstones should have told us something about this, or they should have taught us something about it, because they did tell us. Um, that if we build our houses out of rock, you only got to do them once. Like castles have been standing for thousands of years. So, anyway, let's get back on the subject of this. The rocks, when you stack them up, they cool down at nighttime because air is all the way around them, right? And so they cool down. Well, then in the morning time, the big ball of fire comes out. And so the air temperature heats up quicker than the rock does. And so most of the time, if you go pick up a rock that's sitting on top of the ground, it's a little bit moist underneath the rock because every day it sweats just a little bit. And, that's what you're doing, is you're condensating the moisture out of the air right to where you want it, right? And so then the mulch works like a blanket. So once that it's moist, so if it rains, it soaks all in, as long as you've leveled it out a little bit. You got to level it, or pitch the landscape back a little bit so any water that comes onto it holds onto it for a little bit, and then it'll soak in. But where it soaks in, if it's just bare soil, it'll get baked off. The sun is really really hot, right? Um, Everybody knows this. So if we mulch it, it puts like a blanket, an insulation on the ground. And so then the top layer of the mulch, it gets really hot, but then right below it, because there's a little bit of airspace in there and there's moisture down below, it acts as a good insulation and it holds the moisture to the ground. And so anytime we can start increasing the moisture to the ground and holding water to the land, we're working to build a healthy landscape, basically like the Garden of Eden. The Garden of Eden, in the books, pretty popular books, they said that everything was in abundance. All your food, all your resources, everything you wanted was just there and available for free. Pretty cool place to live, right? But we've been doing the opposite, and we've been rushing the water off the land, because when we put in interstates, they're usually aligned with water pathways, because that's where people want to live, because water is life. And water can provide us so much of what we need. As the river runs by our house, we can put a little paddle on it. And we don't even have to dam it up. We don't have to be trying to control nature. We just work with it. And we put little paddles on the edges of the river. And you could even make it to where the river actually goes back and forth. And so you could have lots of paddles on that river. And say on each paddle, you made it to where it was also a recreation area. So it'd be places where people could go and they could participate. You turn it into a turbine, so that way water gets sucked in through a protective grate, because you don't want kids going in there, right? So water goes in, drives a turbine. The turbine powers a motor, or like a generator head, and then the generator head provides power for that whole neighborhood in that area where the water's flowing past. It flows past all year long. That's energy that we're not capturing, though. We're relying on a monopolized power system that is subject to failure, and it's very expensive. I know people paying $400 a month for electricity. Now, and if you're a big business, that has overhead, I know places paying thousands of dollars a month for grid electricity. That doesn't make sense. It feels like sometimes to me like we're living in backwardsville, where everything is meant so that we have to pay to exist. But what if we did things? You know what? All right. So my grandma, I'm going somewhere with this. My grandma and grandpa owned a grocery store, and this was back in the late 1960s. No, from the late 50s into the 60s, into the 70s, they had a grocery store. And first time my grandma was kind of exposed to this, they had a butcher shop, and they had the cold freezers. And back then, if you went and shot a deer or a bear or an elk, you could just go over to the grocery store and say, "Hey, can you guys take this animal for me and process it up? And it's already been skinned and gutted, but now I just need to have it cut and wrapped and that." And that's what grocery stores did, and so it was a pretty cool deal. Or for the people that wanted to have that done. One day she walks in and there's a bear hanging, but she didn't think it was a bear, because when a bear doesn't have his hair, he looks just like a person. And so when she walked into that cooler and she saw what looked like a person hanging upside down there by the hooks, she freaked out, because what the fuck, where did we just move to? What are we into? What's going on here? And then they affirmed to her that it was a bear. So humans and bears were really, really closely anatomically built. Some Indian elders, they told me that if you're ever lost in the woods and you can find a bear, said follow the bear. Not too close, but follow the bear. And the bear, he'll fish for you, and he'll even gut the fish for you, because that's what he wants. He wants the organ meats. So he'll eat the guts of the fish, and he just leaves the rest behind. And so then you build a fire, and you cook up your fish, and you've got good dinner, and you didn't even have to work for it too hard. And then when he goes and digs up the roots, he says that's the roots that you want to eat too. So where he was digging up the roots, you dig up those roots. You learn the plants that the berry teaches you. And the land is teaching us it all the time if we pay attention. Like back to like if we learned all of our lessons in third grade, by third grade I knew that rivers were supposed to meander. And I'm like, okay, that's where our electrical lesson comes in, and our hydration lesson, because we could be harnessing energy from the river that's meandering through the areas that we live, and we could be watering the land more effectively, right? But there's so much associated with that, because water is one of the most plentiful elements on earth. I think it is the most plentiful element on earth. But yet people are paying like $2 for a gallon of it, when they buy a couple little bottles of water. Why? And then they put fluoride in it. Do you know fluoride isn't used to treat the water? It's used to treat you. It's used to treat you. It's a medicine. They're using it as a medicine. And in my opinion, that would be immoral to be mass medicating people when you can't control the dosage. A little bit of fluoride on your teeth topically is of benefit. But how long is it exposed to your teeth when you're drinking it really fast, right? So there's studies to suggest that it's linked to some of the things that we are finding less than desirable in our society. And I've been in water treatment for a long time. I started back in 1992 working in water treatment plants and wastewater treatment plants, utility distribution, civil engineering in the Air Force. And so that's one thing. The federal government does give a pretty good education on what you're going to be doing for them. But so anyway, we just got to start listening to nature and realizing that just because somebody says something doesn't mean that it's right. It's what they thought at the time. And if we present a different option that sounds better, makes more sense, is aligned with nature, there's a good chance that we can start stepping in a direction of everyone's freedom and independence rather than paying to exist for everything that we do. Why with the technology we have available in the world today, why is there homeless people? Why is there hungry people? Health, that's your own personal choice. Are you going to sit around watching TV all day, or are you going to spend time out with fresh air and dirt and soil and eating from the source, or are you eating from the stores for a lot of money? I've got a video. It's called Food Fight with the Goats and Hunger is for Profit on the YouTube channel. So if you like what I'm saying, you should subscribe. You should share this message. Let's start spreading messages and ideas that make sense instead of just doing what we've always done. Because if we always do what we've always done, we're always going to get what we've always had. I've noticed in the 46 years now that I've been on this rock, I've lost a lot of freedoms to make my free will choices. There's been a lot of people coming together and voting for a certain thing, and sometimes there's money being placed in a lobbying direction. And some of the things I can agree they're pretty good. Wearing a seatbelt, I was a kid, we'd just be crawling all over the place. It's not a problem, we're just in a mobile home, basically, and we rode in the back of the truck. And now I see that if you get in a little accident, I fell off the back of a truck one time, and it hurt. So there are certain laws that are beneficial to us and protects us when we're not being the smartest person. Because we've all made stupid mistakes, or I hope we all have. If not, I'm admitting to it now. So anyway, we're not doing a lot of things that we could be doing. I think that people are really intelligent. I think that people aren't stupid. I think that we are ignorant in certain ways until we're made aware of a different way of doing things. I mean, that I was trying to, like when I was doing smoothies and stuff. When I'm processing my fruit, I would go through a bunch of extra steps, and then I started realizing easier ways of doing things. Well, now I've been able to cut out a lot of steps, and so every time you can cut out a lot of steps on something, you can create efficiency. And whenever you create efficiency in how you do something, you're actually like giving yourself more hours in the day, right? And so when you give yourself more hours in the day, you're actually giving yourself like a longer life. And who doesn't want that? I mean, there's some people who don't want it because, God, there's thousands of people every day that are killing themselves. But that's an epidemic that we don't talk about because that would be indicative of an unhealthy society, not a virus. Something that you can't see that you better be afraid of because they have it and you have it. Are you sure you don't have it? Wear your mask. There's a lot of things that we've been led to believe are normal. We should start just asking ourselves, with everything that we do, is this the most efficient way of accomplishing this task? Because when I started doing that, I realized that there was a lot of things in my life that I was like, oh, okay. And YouTube University, channels like this right here, Free Will, and I call it Free Will because I've even tattooed it across my hands because I'm the freest guy that I know. My middle name is William, Will I am, and I want to help people recognize that freedom isn't only for those that have a million people working for them and they have a multi-million-dollar yacht. And I mean, I don't have a yacht. I have a canoe. but my canoe doesn't cost me anything. It cost me $125 to buy it off of Craigslist, and I can put it on top of any vehicle that I own. And so then every little body of water that I see, I can just drop into and I can go explore it. And there's so much cool stuff out there. I mean, they say the earth is overpopulated, but it's only because people are shoving themselves into cities on top of each other. And then they're struggling. They're fighting over the same jobs to pay for the same rent, over the same food, over the same clothes, over the same entertainment, over the same cars. My little car cost me $800 on Craigslist. It's a full-wheel drive or all-wheel drive Subaru, and I had to put a couple $100 into fixing it. But it's a good car, and it's got a couple dents in it. That's why it was only $800. But I'm not concerned about it being stolen when I go into the store. And if some little old lady bumps into my door with her door, I don't care. It's your opportunity to show that you're willing to forgive people for little accidents. And well, I got some people showing up to learn about this right now, so I'm gonna let you go, and hopefully you enjoyed the video. Like, share, subscribe, and let me know what you want me to talk about, because I've learned about a lot of stuff. Alright, thanks.